Timber prices are irrelevant. I'm going to say that one more time. Timber prices are irrelevant and you shouldn't pay much attention to them. Now, I know from both my website and YouTube analytics that one of the most common questions landowners have by far is essentially how much their wood is worth. And I understand we all like to know what we actually have. But I think a large part of this interest is actually generated by fear, a rational fear for a very real risk. And that risk is not getting what we deserve for our trees. Nobody likes the idea of losing money, but when it comes to trees, I think there's an extra element of pain associated with not getting the highest amount of value, probably because of the timescales involved. If I have an oak tree that's been growing for 100 years, I want to be damn sure I get as much money as possible because it's been growing for 100 years, so I'm going to cut it when the market is strong. It's just loss aversion, but it's loss aversion on steroids because we perceive our timber as being so scarce. And if you don't have much experience in the market, which why would you, then the idea of not getting top dollar for our timber can be terrifying. But that is a risk that is almost entirely associated with large and infrequent harvests. In my last video, I explained how you can manage your land in such a way to have consistent, sustainable, and even yearly timber harvests. And this is one of the greatest benefits associated with setting up such a system. By having more frequent harvests, you can make those swings in timber prices largely irrelevant, and you can greatly reduce the arbitrary risk associated with having a single harvest. That's because of something called dollar cost averaging, which, if you're into investing in finance, may be familiar to you. But there are some things unique to forestry that go beyond finance that I think make the case for dollar cost averaging even more compelling. So let's look into it. So what is dollar cost averaging? Well, let's look at a chart of actual timber prices. This is a chart of Texas hardwood pulpwood prices in dollars per ton. And like I said, they're timber prices, so this is the amount the landowner actually receives. And it's in real 2010 dollars, so it is inflation adjusted. Now, as you can see, it's pretty volatile. Saw timber is a lot more stable in comparison. Pulpwood is a low-tier product, so oftentimes the market can be a bit binary. Either there is a good market or there isn't. So it helps illustrate the point a little more. So as a rational landowner, obviously you're going to want to harvest on the peaks and avoid these troughs. And, when we're talking about stock market investing, it can be hard enough to time the market and to really know when those peaks are happening. But when it comes to timber harvesting, there's an added layer of difficulty that makes it impossible. A timber harvest takes a long time to set up to a year, but at least 3 months. And in 3 months, the market can change materially. So by the time you realize it's a good market and a good time to harvest, it's already too late. But there's a much bigger issue here that's completely independent of this short-term volatility. So here we have a similar chart of Texas hardwood saw timber prices over the same time period. And like I said, it's a lot more stable in comparison. So you can look at this and think, okay, no issue, you don't have that volatility. But think about it this way. Imagine you're a landowner in 2012 and you decide to conduct a timber harvest and you liquidate most of your standing timber. Well, you're going to be looking at the market at that time and thinking, yeah, I did pretty good. I got top dollar for my trees, the market's great, I'm sitting pretty. But then you would have sat back and watched the market go up another 40%. Do you think if you would have known that, you would have waited an extra 4 years to get another 40% for your timber that's been growing for at least the better part of a century? Yeah, I think so. And 40% is no small number. It's a big deal, and it's a cost you unknowingly incurred just by choosing an arbitrary date of harvest. And in comparison, it makes all your other decisions, the silviculture on your land, even the logging contract itself, fairly inconsequential. So that's really the greatest benefit of frequent harvesting. By harvesting every year, let's say, we're going to be able to capitalize on the markets when they're good and hit those peaks. We're also going to get those troughs, but it's going to average out over time. And if the market continues to go up, we still have standing inventory to sell into that market. We don't have to take the risk of choosing an arbitrary point in time to liquidate all of our standing inventory. That's dollar cost averaging. And the problem goes beyond prices. I know a lot of landowners are concerned about getting ripped off if they sell their timber, and I understand that it's not a transparent market, but a lot more can go wrong than just the stumpage contract. You can have bad rutting, you can have excessive trails, excessive residual stand damage, and so on. And ideally, a forester should be working with you and answering your questions and managing your expectations. But to be honest, there's a lot of foresters that aren't great communicators. After all, a lot of people go into the woods because they don't really like dealing with people. And even if they are a great communicator and really good at what they do, maybe they become so accustomed to things that what's a problem to you isn't necessarily a problem to them. And even in the best of circumstances, even if the forester's great and the logger's great, sometimes stuff just happens. There's always human error. Sometimes there's, weather that can interrupt things and so on. That's a big reason why I put together How to Read Your Forest. It gives you a broad overview of forestry, silviculture, and timber harvesting so you can ask the right questions. Because if you don't know what you don't know, then how are you going to know? So if this video is resonating with you, if you find it interesting, I highly recommend you go and give it a read. You can download it for free using the link in the description and the comments below. But my point here is this: if we're harvesting all or most of our land at once, we have exactly one shot to get this right. There is no forgiveness of mistakes. God may forgive your sins, but the scars of the forest will stare at you for the rest of your life. By having small and frequent harvests, we can allow ourselves to make those mistakes. Yeah, maybe we get lowballed a little. Maybe we have the wrong equipment in this forest type. Maybe our silviculture is bad. Whatever. We learn and we do better next time because it only ends up being maybe 10 acres out of a 200-acre property. It's not a big deal. That makes the whole process less daunting and considerably less risky. So for the vast majority of landowners, I would really avoid doing large harvests. I just don't think it makes any sense. And yes, you are going to have some logistical inefficiencies there that are especially going to affect the lower bounds of acreage. So you're going to have to adjust things accordingly. And if you have a very small property, that might mean that the best way to do this is to harvest yourself, which can be great. But I've talked about this before, and I've actually done an entire video on it. Economies of scale in forestry, it's a bit like squeezing on a balloon. They just don't exist in the long term, and that is a hill I will die on. So anyway, guys, if you want to learn how to set the system up on your land, go and watch the last video I uploaded. It will take you through the entire process in detail using tools you can get on Silvicultural. And if you join Silvicultural now, we have lifetime memberships available, which will give you lifetime access to all our tools and software, which includes the harvest planning tool, which will help you calculate how many acres you can actually harvest every year, every 5 years, every 10 years, and the predicted yield of those harvests. Our mapping tools, which will allow you to actually map out and plan and schedule those harvests, as well as give you the tools to bring data back and forth into the field using your phone's GPS. Our forest growth tool, which allows you to predict and estimate the growth and standing inventory on your forest by pulling data from the United States FIA database. Our financial analysis tool, which allows you to compare the financial viability of various projects. And our courses, which currently include a silviculture course and a tree felling course. So go ahead and check that out, and I will catch you guys later.